Doggy, 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 doggy. It's a doggy, doggy world. It's a doggy world. So, Doge be like. We're going to talk about what Doge be like. First of all, if you're MAGA, you might as well see a way out. You're a child, you're a troll, you're a savage. I know what you guys are about. You guys are frauds. The stuff that you talk about and get all angry about and tweeting online, it's all bullshit. Right? So go play your little game somewhere else. Go buy your stupid little liberal tears energy drink and go around and try to get people to be like, oh my goodness, look, he's got like this is not for you. If you used to be MAGA, but you're an adult, so you're now no longer MAGA, come on in. If you're a Trump voter, even if you still like Trump, um, come on in. But if you're MAGA, get the hell out of here. This ain't for you. This is not for you, man. Um, there's no point trying to reason with people that not trying to be reasoned with, right? They they're fake, right? So it's like you're wasting your time. You're sitting there trying to convince someone who doesn't even believe the things that they're saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm pretending to be something, and then you're trying to convince me otherwise, but I don't actually believe the stuff I'm saying anyway. So you're wasting your time. So whatever you say, I'm just gonna try to troll you and be like, oh, what about yeah. So just step off. For the rest of the people, I want to give you a little bit of an analogy. I'm gonna make a left wing analogy for Doge. Um, this video is really for conservatives and right wingers, because I know it can be difficult. Even I, the analyst guy, I'm not immune to the effects of sometimes seeing things incorrectly because how do I explain it? So I don't know how I want to explain that, but the bottom line is I recognize that sometimes, and I use this exercise. This is what helps me. I try to flip things and see how I feel about them when I flip them to see if I feel the same way. It's like people that talk about freedom of speech. You need to flip it. What if the person who was saying something controversial was somebody you didn't like or had a different ideology? How would you feel then? Anyway, so here's the scenario. George Soros. George Soros teams up with Kamala Harris, and they win the presidency. When Kamala Harris, in this fictitious story that I'm telling you, when she was running for office, one of the big things that she ran on, again, I'm making this up, right? When she was running, a big thing that she kept talking about was housing. The houses are too expensive. It's way too expensive. When I win, I'm going to bring those prices down. The American people are struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling to pay mortgage. I'm going to bring it down. You got to vote for me. Kamala Harris. I'm going to bring down housing. We're going to, on day one, we are going to resolve the housing crisis. So imagine Kamala ran on that, right? That's not even the best analogy because Trump didn't run on fraud and waste. He ran on the economy. Then as soon as he wins, he forgets about the economy and starts talking about fraud and waste, fraud and waste. But anyway, put that aside. She ran on housing, right? She gonna fix the housing crisis on day one. She wins. Then what does she do? She immediately brings George Soros and they form this housing alliance or something, right? It's a new department in the government. They repurposed some Bush era, department, and they call it the Housing Alliance, right? So immediately, this Housing Alliance starts aggressively going after it's run by George Soros. aggressively going after a bunch of conservative things, right? So, for example, um, they either conservative or things that conservatives might like, for example. So they shut down federal funding for charter schools and homeschooling programs, claiming that they are promoting economic segregation. I don't know how that's going to help with the housing crisis, but that's what they do. That's the first thing they do. Defund rural police departments under the guise of cutting waste, but keeping funding in big city diversity initiatives, right? Closing military recruitment centers in conservative states, saying that they're disproportionately funneling, they funnel the poor into war. Eliminate farm subsidies for red state agriculture, but keeps the green energy grants for coastal elites. Target country music and NASCAR with wasteful corporate sponsorship investigations, but increases funding for left wing arts programs, right? So conveniently, it seems like everything that this Kamala Harris program is going after, it seems to be a bunch of culture war stuff, right? So they say they're going to fix housing, but yet they're going after a bunch of things that don't actually fix housing, right? Rents are still high and going higher. Mortgages are still high and going higher. But we shut down a bunch of these rural programs and a bunch of things that we know conservatives would like, and we know that really partisan left wingers would be happy to be like, yeah, shut down those racists, right? Everything they go after, it's somehow associated with white nationalism. This thing is racist, that thing is racist. Cut it down, shut it down. But it gets worse. When you dig deeper, then you realize that the organization that George Soros went after under the guise of they're doing white nationalist stuff or this is stuff supporting white nationalism. So George Soros goes after the organization under that guise, right? But if you dig deeper, you realize the same organization had an investigation into one of George Soros's companies. So George Soros was out there abusing people, right? Unfair rental practices or all kinds of stuff, just scandalous, greedy stuff. And every single one of these organizations that he targets were organizations that were trying to hold him accountable, just by coincidence, right? So by coincidence, they all happen to be red meat for the left, right? So we're gonna fix housing. We're gonna fix housing. The housing is too expensive. Ran on that. Now you're in office. Now every program you're shutting down is conveniently red meat for the left. And then if you dig deeper, also, these are things that were stopping George Soros from his greediness and out of control, world domination stuff. So George Soros is doing things that on the back end is benefiting him and his business and his wealth and his power. But on the front, he's talking about, oh, it's racist stuff. This is racist. I was shutting it down. Like, none of it makes sense. So again, you said you're going to fix housing. The stuff you're doing is not fixing housing. Housing is still out of control, right? But even as you're supposedly fixing housing, you're not even talking about how you're fixing the housing. You're just talking to red meat. Oh, we shut down this white nationalist stuff and we don't need no more racism in our government. Our tax dollars shouldn't be going. Okay. But how is that making the rent cheaper? Right? Can't answer it. And how is it that all these organizations are somehow tied to your company? Isn't that a conflict of interest? Oh, yeah, racism. What? I guess you like racism. What problem? Hey, Danny, what problem do you have with me going after these racist programs? Apparently, you like racist programs, so you must be racist. Right? So that's what happens. So you conservatives, you go to George Soros and Kamala Harris, and you say this is bullshit. You said you're going to bring down the price of housing. You're not bringing it down. The prices are still going up. What are you doing? And what is the response? So you conservatives say that to Kamala Harris, and what does she say to you? Oh, you must be racist. We're trying to stop the racism and you have a problem with that. Like, that's what's happening right now. Right? That is basically what's happening right now. I mean, you have to be completely brain dead not to see that that's what they're doing. And then the other side of it that's bad is, imagine if people start pointing out this nonsense, right? They're like, hey, man, don't you find it funny how a bunch of these things that Kamala Harris said that she didn't actually do? She said she shut down this program because was run by white nationalists, and she said it was going to reduce the cost of housing by 2%. And from what we see, the price of housing didn't change, right? And then the person who is rational and honest enough to admit and say, well, that's true, they say, well, they make mistakes, right? And then we keep showing more and more evidence, all the evidence, but wait a minute, don't you notice it's all red meat stuff? Well, right? Don't you notice that all the companies George Soros is focused on are somehow connected to his businesses? Yeah, but the white nationalists. But we do need to get rid of the white nationalists. And this is something that I've noticed has happened for a while. It's like it's so easy to scam Americans. So because you genuinely have a concern about racism, right? So all I have to do to control you is to use that narrative, say those magic words. I'm going after racism. I'm going after racism. We have to stop racism. And then once I use that as a shield, it doesn't matter what I do. I could lie every single day and keep getting called out for lying. Doesn't matter. When someone challenges your support, so you're supporting this George Soros thing, and someone says, why are you supporting George Soros? He's a fraud. Rather than conceding and saying, yeah, he's a fraud, this is nonsense. No, it's kind of, well, actually, the racism is a problem, and we're doing it to get. So, just because you have a problem with racism, you don't even care if the thing is not actually doing anything about racism? You're So do you actually care about racism or do you just care about the words? Because someone who demonstrably what they're doing is not in any way helping racism. They just keep saying racism. They keep lying and all kind of nonsense is happening and it's pointed out to you and you're like, well, and in that context, you actually want to engage in a conversation about racism when the person who's pushing this thing is clearly a complete fraud. I mean, it's like the other analogy I gave the other day where it's kind of like a bunch of arsonists. They win like the mayor. So the mayor is an arsonist and the mayor has an arsonist partner she's working with, right? And they're making a bunch of noise about we got to stop the burning down of our town. They keep saying those words, but nothing they're doing is actually helping to stop the fires. The fires are still going, right? The fires are still going. We have this arsonist mayor. And then also, we keep seeing evidence that this arsonist mayor might actually be looking to burn some things down because we keep catching him on camera buying a bunch of like butane fuel and stuff from Home Depot, like in bulk. And we're like, what are you doing? Why do you need 1,000 boxes of matches? Like, are you people say you're an arsonist. Is this true? Because here you are with a bunch of matches, and then the response is just, we gotta stop the burning down of the town. We gotta stop the burning down. Like, once you say those buzzwords, you have a bunch of people ready to defend you, and they might say, well, okay, it did look kind of funny with them buying the matches and stuff, but we do need to stop these. Listen, guys, the minute that you see that somebody is a fraud, that they're using some kind of rhetoric that you care about as a trick, they're trying to trick people, then that is the minute that you stop engaging with it. That is not the time. If it's an issue you're serious about, then you need to not be putting more fuel on the fire of the nonsense, right? If you see this person is a fraud, they're lying, the stuff they're doing is not what they're saying it is, then it's kind of like, no, now is not the time to be talking about that issue. If you want to talk about the issue, I'm not saying don't talk about it, but don't talk about it in the context of this fraud. If the person is clearly a fraud, or what they're doing is not working, they're clearly just tricking people, then whenever people are talking about what that person is doing, that is not the time for you to be like, well, actually, no, 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 actually, no. Right? If you really care about waste and fraud, but you see that the waste and fraud people are the waste and fraud, then do not bring up how we do. Well, we do need to. No, you're validating the fraud. You're helping them to scam people by doing that. Right? Because you're putting out this message of like, okay, well, they're not doing it in the best way, but I mean, it is something that we do need to get done. But it's not getting done. Right? It's not getting done. Which of the defense contractors are scared right now? Oh my goodness. You think Lockheed Martin is nervous right now? Oh, they're gonna cut it. They're gonna stop ordering our missiles. There's no big defense contractor that is nervous right now. Right? There's no people in the government who are doing actual fraud that are nervous. The IGs have been fired. All the people that were there to look for fraud have been removed. So the watch guards are gone. And the people now who took their place clearly are frauds themselves, focused on culture war stuff and their own interests. So the people who are doing the waste and fraud are chilling right now. In fact, there's somebody in the Trump administration that was selling clothing. They're recording videos in the White House or some government building, recording videos in their outfits so they can sell outfits online. These are the people who are asking hardworking veterans and others, can you name 5 things that you've done? So people who are arresting pedophiles, who are putting drug kingpins in jail, as has been happening forever, those people are being asked to, what have you done? Name 5 things that you've done. Meanwhile, the administration that's asking this consists of people who are selling their outfits. And then you guys are out there validating this conversation, talking about, well, we do need to cut waste and fraud. You're saying that at a time where there's so much fraud happening right now by the people who keep talking about waste and fraud. I mean, guys, please stop, man. If this is reminding you, because if you weren't talking about it before, for some reason, but you want to talk about it now, at least separate it from DOGE. Don't be in a conversation about DOGE and somebody saying Elon Musk is a fraud or Trump is whatever. In that moment, that is not the time to be like, well, we do need to cut the government. No. If you believe that for real, you need to initiate that conversation outside of DOGE. Right? You need to just post up on social media and be like, these defense contractors need to be shut down because da 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 da. Right? Have a serious, honest conversation about your concern about government spending. But do not introduce it in the context of people who are calling out. Because if you're really concerned about fraud and someone is saying Elon Musk is committing fraud, Trump is committing fraud, right? They're hurting our government's ability to shut down the real fraud because they have gotten rid of the police, the people who look for these things. And they're firing a lot, literally firing police. They're firing a lot of, trying to get rid of a lot of these, law enforcement people who are the ones who would investigate the fraud, right? So just remember what I said, my analogy. Kamala Harris, every day, all day, talking about housing. We're going to bring down housing. And every single thing that she goes after, it seems somehow like she's attacking conservatives, right? If you have a list of things that conservatives care about the most, somehow it seems like everything Kamala Harris goes after is matching that list. And it's like, if you're really trying to bring down housing, how is it that that your attempt to bring down housing somehow is conveniently all red meat for the left? Like, really? How does that happen? And then again, the other level is, how is it that all these organizations you're targeting, George Soros is somehow you're benefiting? Like, these are organizations that were trying to hold you accountable, and by you attacking them, now you're able to do your thing, get richer and more powerful. It can't be coincidence, right? I know any conservative listening right now, you would not fall for that. You would be like, this is bullshit, right? Kamala Harris is a fraud. George Soros is a fraud. They're lying to us. They're trying to scam the American people. So I want you to do the same thing to Elon Musk and Donald Trump, because that's exactly what they're doing. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that every organization is a red meat organization for the right. Oh, it's LGBT. Oh, transgender mice. Oh, no, it's actually transgenic mice. Oh, okay. And they're doing this thing with transgender mice. Hey, didn't we tell you that it's transgenic mice? Oh, oh. And did you hear? $8 million for transgender mice. How many goddamn times we gotta tell you it's transgender? Whoa, I get it. I get it. You're a fraud. You're 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 bad faith. This is all a game, right? That's why you're not making mistakes. These are not mistakes. These are lies, right? Even if you didn't know that it was transgenic and not transgender in the beginning, even if you didn't know that, after you knew it, you chose to keep pretending like it was something for transgender mice, which means that the whole thing is a fraud. You're being fraudulent. That's what it is. So I don't need to explain it to you. I don't need to say anymore, hey, it's transgenic, not transgender. I don't need to explain that to you, because you know, you get it. And now I get it. It's all a fraud. Right? Now, if we could just get the other people who are not down with this to call it out and stop enabling it, stop saying, oh, well, the government does need to cut down on. That's not the conversation to have in the context of DOGE, right? Anyone talking about DOGE, having a discussion about DOGE, do not bring up that the government does need to cut back on their spending. That's not the time or the place, because all you're doing is supporting fraud and waste when you do that, which makes you also a fraud if you do that, right? Because if you're really concerned about fraud and waste, don't try to validate this conversation, right? It's a distraction, man. Anyway, right wingers were so obsessed with demonizing Soros. Man, I need my glasses. I don't know where they are. Old man over here. Actually, can I zoom in the text? I think there's a way to do it. There used to be. Guess not. Let me lighten up the screen maybe. Old man. Getting old, getting old. Uh, right wingers were so obsessed with demonizing Soros, but had no problem with Musk pumping so much money into Trump's campaign. Yep. That's a clear example of mind-blowing hypocrisy. They have no principles. Nope. Don't know much about Soros. Guess the mostly supported. And that's the thing also. I think I bumped into one transgender person that I'm aware of in my life. In real life. I don't think I've ever heard anyone use the word transgender even. Think about that. I live in a blue area and ain't nobody talking about transgender anything. Um, I never had anyone tell me that they want me to use special pronouns. None of this stuff, right? All this stuff, the only reason I even know about it is because of conservatives. Them. They're the ones Like Little Mermaid. I'm a grown ass man. I wouldn't even know that Little Mermaid have a new movie coming out because they're not trying to sell it to me. I'm a grown ass man. Why do I know about Little Mermaid? Conservatives. Oh, Little Mermaid, it's so woke, right? And all this bullshit about the trans this and trans that and whatever. I live in a blue area. I don't see it. The people who talking the most about this stuff, it's the right. The right wing are the ones who keep talking about transgender this, transgender that, and this is woke and that's woke and some kids movie something else and oh Barbie something something, right? Anyway, I'm out. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. DOGE is a fraud. So if you really are concerned about government spending, then don't be validating DOGE. Call out and attack DOGE. Call for DOGE to be shut down. And call for either they rehire the IGs, the real people who's supposed to look for fraud, or if you think that they weren't doing a good enough job, replace them with somebody better. How about that? We already have organizations to go after waste and fraud in our government, right? How about you reform them and make them better and more efficient? Because if that's the argument, which, and notice they're not making that argument. He didn't even make an argument that these organizations that's supposed to go after waste and fraud are not good enough or they're not doing their job. He just went and just fired them. Why? Right? You have a mechanism. I mean, it's like, I hate to do another analogy, but I'm running on law enforcement. There's too much crime. And as soon as I get elected, the first thing I do is I fire all the police chiefs. I fire all the police captains. Right? I I shut down a bunch of organizations that like crime watch organizations or whatever. And then I don't replace the chief, I don't replace the captain, I don't put a new crime watch organization, but I start my own little thing, right? So it's kind of like a police department, but it's not really. And then I start doing investigations, but every investigation I do is somehow it's like white supremacy this, white supremacy that, it's racist this, racist that. It's all like left-wing talking points. Like you don't see me like, oh, I'm gonna start a drug task force. I'm gonna go after drug dealers, or I'm gonna start a task force to go after pedophiles, or I'm gonna start a task force to go after bank robbers. No, it's white nationalist this and white nationalist that, and we're gonna go after the KKK and we're gonna stop all these. We're gonna investigate anybody in the government who's a white nationalist. Wait, what? You fired the police chief and the captains. You shut down some of these like police watch organizations or whatever to start your own sort of police department, but it's not really a police department. And every investigation you're doing is somehow about racism. Like, how does that stop people from robbing my house? How does that stop the pedophiles? And matter of fact, the police who were going after the pedophiles, they are struggling because you fired their leaders, so they're a little bit in disarray. So now it's like the pedophiles are actually more emboldened. They feel safer now because the people that were going after them have been sort of neutered. And then you are doing law enforcement, but you're just focused on racism? Like, what? What's really going on? Come on, guys. Wake up. Wake up. Be woke.